Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining me. Today, I've got a special guest on the show with me, a bloke that I worked with many, many years ago, spasmodically, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and that's John Amadio. John, thanks for being here, mate.
Thanks very much, Tony, for inviting me.
It's good to see you after all this time.
It is. It's been a few years, actually.
It has. I reckon it must be about 10 years, maybe.
It'll be close to that. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
Since we were last working on anger management.
Yeah, that's it. So time gets away from us a little bit, doesn't it?
Although, I mean, we've kept in touch through Facebook. And
we have.
But we face to face. This will be the first time in probably a decade, I reckon.
It has. You're still looking well.
Yeah, and I know we're both retired.
So. We have. And so we wanted to talk today a little bit about retirement and what that means to you and to me. It's a subject I think a lot about.
Yep.
In fact, I've been retired now for exactly 12 months.
Right, a bit less than me, actually.
When did you retire?
Well, I wasn't intending to retire, but unfortunately, because of ill health, I had a lot of problems with my left hip, which ended up being so bad that I couldn't actually walk. So I couldn't, even though I was working from home because of COVID, I still had to see clients and I still had to do other work. And it got to the point where I was struggling to get out of bed, and the doctor said either I had the hip replacement or I'd be bedbound. So I got to the point where I was almost bedbound. So work very diplomatically suggested that I do an early retirement, and they were very generous in sort of with their parting gift to me. So
perhaps could you tell us a little bit about the work you used to do? I know we crossed paths with some of that work as well, but
when I was with Relationships Australia since 2007, and I had a variety of roles there. One of them was actually teaching youth work because I'd been a youth worker, etc. Another was working in case management. My last one was actually working as a case manager. I mean, these are kids who are under care.
Yeah.
That had been released from care. And my client group ranged from 17 years of age up to 55 years of age. And I had 56 clients. All of them had very complex issues, mental health issues, etc. So that was my last job with Relationships Australia. It was funded through the Department of Child Protection. And that was for my last 5 years of my career there. Yeah.
Oh, right. So there's some crossover there with all the work I've done in terms of Child Protection Party and working with families whose kids were removed and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I want to know then, so you went to university.
Yep.
At what age were you when you went to uni?
I was 18. I mean, I went out working as a builder's labourer after high school, but then one morning I found out I did very well in state exam and got a Commonwealth scholarship, etc.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
all right,
so
cool.
That was pre Whitlam, of course.
It was.
Then he came in and I think did the right thing by making it free.
What did you study?
Basically did an arts degree, majoring in psychology and politics actually, and did a few other subjects along the way, classical studies, philosophy, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Some that were extra, some that were not. Also did some economics as well, so that was that. Did a teaching diploma, started off at Tarcoola.
So there seems to be this strong sense of social justice for you. Do you know where that came from?
Not really. It's really weird actually. Like I didn't have the most joyful upbringing, shall we say, at home, etc. And I left home fairly early, to be honest. But somewhere along the line, I've just got this idea that you always help people if you can. I like this idea that I got from White Ribbon, that you shouldn't be a passive bystander. And that was in relation to domestic violence and that sort of thing. But I think in general, when if somebody's doing the wrong thing, whether it's in a pub or on the street or whatever, I think intervention is necessary, but it doesn't mean that you have to be brave and put your life on the line. One of the things I got involved in is helping these two women from Afghanistan. And I was a top...
Sorry, John, did this happen after you retired?
No, it overlaps. That's why I'm sort of going I sort of need to give just quickly background. What happened is, as you probably know and everyone else, is that on August 15th, 2021, us and the Yanks and everyone, we all pulled out of Kabul and everything in very short notice. Now, whether we should have either invaded Afghanistan and had a war there is a different issue, and a lot of us oppose that.
I'm going with no on that.
No.
We shouldn't have done it.
No. I think a lot of us, me included, a lot of us agree that. However, having done that, the way we exited left thousands, hundreds of thousands. Yeah. In fact, I can tell you categorically now, because of my experience, I know there's over 300,000 refugee Afghans, Hazara, etc., in Pakistan, that have tried to get out and are being shipped back to Afghanistan because the Pakistan economy can't sustain them. And a lot of them are facing torture, execution, etc. Anyway, what happened was, that was on August 15th. In November 2021, on Facebook, I got these requests to be friends with these women. And I sort of said, okay, I'll be friends, because I figure, if nothing much to lose or gain. Anyway, and as I got to talk to them, and through mainly a translator app, to be honest, because they couldn't speak a word of English, they started to tell me what their situation was, and that they had been journalists in Afghanistan prior to the Taliban taking over. They were university educated in several degrees. They were part of the women's movement there to try and fight for women's rights, which the Taliban are very, very tough on, to be honest. I could tell you plenty of things about the Taliban in terms of how they treat women, which I find quite appalling. Anyway, so I didn't know whether they were scammers, to be honest, because I'd already been told.
I understand that, yeah.
I'd already been told by a number of people, to be very careful, not just about, forget about the Afghan thing, there's the love type scammers, the financial scamming, there's all this, if it can be scammed, somebody will think of a way of doing it.
They will.
And to extract money from you or get some sort of benefit from you. So I wasn't sure. So from November 2021 to April 2022, I spent about 5 months getting them to send me a whole lot of information, which I then reference with some sources I've got here in Australia, including the Australian Refugee Association and other organisations, just to find out whether they were legit. So then from April 2022 to June 18th this year, I've been pushing for them to be able to come here to Australia. I sponsored them, which cost me quite a bit of money, to be honest. More, and in fact has not quite sent me broke, but almost sent me broke.
So when did you discover that they weren't a scam?
Over the period of that 5 months. It wasn't just one thing. I mean, in the end, I had about 50 or 60 documents from them, which they sent to me, which I then printed up, and then I referenced with other people, documents including pictures of their passports, ID, qualifications, family. Where I also went into the detail of them actually having to detail all their brothers and sisters and where they'd lived, and because what I did is I got the application forms from the government to apply for humanitarian visas, and I asked. But there's a lot of background questions on those forms, so I checked those questions with them as part of my referencing about whether they were legit or not.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because in the end, for example, they outlined, I think they've got something like 7 brothers and sisters, and then they put their brothers and sisters, if they're married, who their family partners are, and their kids, where they live, and all that sort of thing. So it's very hard to make that up all the time, and that can be cross-referenced. So it took about 5 months for me to be satisfied that they were legit. Once I was satisfied with that, I then engaged Australian Refugee Association support. But then once we got into the process, they actually really helped me a lot with the application, because the applications, I think, for each woman was about 30 pages or thereabouts. Like they're not simple. There's 2 different application forms for each one. One's a simple one of about half a dozen pages, which I think is mainly about the sponsor, which is me. It's a while since I've done it now, and the other one is about them. And for the 2 of them, a lot, and it costs money, which I had to find. Okay, it would be probably around just over $8,000.
Oh, hell.
That I've had to spend over a period of time.
So So you went through the process. You got all the paperwork filled out. You validated who they were.
Yep.
Everything seemed cool.
Yep.
How did you manage to get them here, though?
Well, then what happened was I made contact with various organisations, including groups called Circle of Friends and that help with refugees, and got other information. And I've got to say that I got fairly depressed about the whole thing at one point, because people kept telling me that it was going to take 8 to 10 years to get them here, not to get my hopes up. And I had a number of people really pouring cold water on the whole thing. But he said, we're allowed to swear. So I said, fuck it, I'm still going to just push ahead and see how we go. And then, so I changed tack a little bit as well. I then wrote to about 30 politicians.
Oh, right.
Trying to list their support.
So, John, can I just ask you, how much of your time was being consumed with all of this?
It varied. I mean, there were times in a week where it would take probably 10 hours. in a week. Other times when I didn't do anything much, because there wasn't much happening.
Much you could do, yeah.
Except wait and see. I mean, there's quite a lot of time when I was I was always in communication with them. We got onto WhatsApp, and the good thing about WhatsApp is that it has a translator, translation service. So they speak Farsi. Obviously, I don't, and and it's entertaining when you do translations, of course, because they're not 100%.
Doesn't always work out to be an exact translation.
No, definitely not. So we had quite a lot of misunderstandings, but there was always enough in the translation to sort of get a gist from their point of view of what I was trying to ask for and what they were providing. So we muddled our way through that. And look, the women were both very patient with me in terms of,
How many women were there?
The two sisters. Two. So I contacted the politicians. Only two offered to help me, and that was Barbara Pocock.
Right, which is fabulous. It's sensational.
And look, and their office was very good.
Yep.
And the other one who did provide me with support was my local federal MP, Steve Georgianis.
All right,
Georgianis, through one of the women in his office. So I'm not sure in the end, to be honest, how much their involvement pushed things along, but things started to move along much quicker after I sort of contacted them and sent information through. And
so what was that process then? Once they got involved, whatever.
Well, what happened is when I got information through, everything then went through ARA, basically, through their senior person there. I took a back seat, but we were liaising a lot. So ARA, Australian Refugee Association, was the main contact with the government, Department of Human Services, Department of Home
Affairs,
Immigration Home Affairs. I get my names mixed up, but Home Affairs, that's correct. So they did most of the liaison work, and all of a sudden, Tamara, who's a woman I was working with, said, it looks like they're going to be getting a letter of invitation from the department, which means that they're sort of approving them. And that came sort of out of left field because I wasn't expecting that to happen, but it did. And from there, they then had to have biometrics done, which I had to pay for. The other thing I should say is you can't apply for a humanitarian visa until they're in a third country. So while they're in Afghanistan, I couldn't make the application. One of the things they had to do was actually get to another country, like Pakistan or Iran or one of those other countries nearby. They chose Pakistan because Pakistan, at least, even though it's got lots of problems, has a good working relationship with Australia, from what I can gather, and is amenable to helping people to stay there and to leave when they need to. Whereas Iran, women are not treated very well.
So how did they manage to get from Taliban? They basically had a closed border at that time, I would imagine.
Well, probably can't go into too much detail, but they made a number of trips and had to avoid bandits and other people along the way.
Yeah, so it's pretty perilous.
It is perilous, and I mean, one of the things we talked about before they actually, before I even put the application in, because they were still in Afghanistan, was them having to make this journey and the risks associated with it, and the fact that I think at the time, I think I got this right. At the time, I think the risk was something like you had a 50% chance of even making it there, or you could be taken by bandits or whatever. So they made the trip. They've got contacts. They come from a large family. They're Hazara, which is another reason why they're being persecuted, because the Taliban are basically trying to wipe out the Hazara as a subgroup. So being women activists, being pictured in demonstrations. I've got photos of them. I've also got many photos they sent me of executions of people in their villages, etc., of women being beaten. These are photos that are fabricated.
And of course, they're educated women too,
which the Taliban don't
like.
Taliban
didn't like, that's right.
And so, anyway, so they made it to Pakistan. We then made the application, and then after all of the intervention by the Pocock and Co. and the government, then the next thing they had to have was biometrics by an organisation called IOM, I think it is, which is the International Organisation of Migrants or something like that. It's called. They do something on behalf of all countries. Mm-hmm. So they did, and which I had to pay for because nothing against the women, but they didn't have money, so they didn't have the capacity to do it. So it fell back to me, and then I had to do pay for their medicals as well. They also had interviews, I think, by Zoom or one of those things with the people.
And they're doing this from Pakistan?
Yeah, they're doing all of this from Pakistan, Islamabad, So everything moved along, and then things started to get very critical. I found out that they were going to be deported on the 20th of June because their visas had run out. were running out, and if they got deported, they were being deported back to Afghanistan. Now, that didn't mean they were going to be executed, but if they were found by the Taliban, which is a high probability.
Sorry, they're going to be deported from where?
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Yeah, because their visas in Pakistan were going to run out on the 20th of June.
Yep.
Now, Pakistan were going to then be deporting them back to Afghanistan, not necessarily on that day, but any time after the 20th, they could, if they were found, etc., they would be deported back to Afghanistan. They couldn't renew their visas because they had been there for quite a while and renewed their visas once, and they couldn't renew them again. So that they either had to leave Pakistan by the 20th, or they would be deported if they were found there any date after the 20th, and that would be back to Afghanistan. And it was very clear to me from the information I got that if they got found by the Taliban, they were highly likely to be tortured and executed. So that made it fairly.
So this is a really tight time frame at this particular point. Yeah. So how did you overcome that?
What I did then is I got the money, which was about just over $3,000, and I organised them to have tickets to fly via Qatar Airlines to Doha, and then on the 17th of June, and then Doha to Adelaide.
Which year are we talking about?
Now.
This year?
Just now.
Oh, this is damn recent.
Oh, this is not even a month ago.
No,
just over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They arrived 2 weeks ago yesterday. So no, this is now. So everything's moved along over that 2-year period instead of 8 or 10 years. So it's really been, even though it seems long in one sense, it's actually a lot shorter than what I'd been told would be the case. Because they still had their valid visas, they didn't need special letters to be able to travel, as long as they travelled before the 20th. Even if they were in Pakistan after the 20th, they could still travel to Australia if they weren't deported. But then they couldn't get on a plane without a special letter from Pakistan government to do that, an exit letter. So because they were travelling within their visa, all they had to do when they got to the airport was have their visa from Pakistan with them, their approval visa from Australia, which I sent them, and have their own passports and personal documentation. So they boarded the plane, no problem, on the 17th, flew from Islamabad to Doha, waited there, 7 or 8 hours or whatever it is, and then flew from Doha to Adelaide on the 18th.
All right. And you were there to meet them?
Yep, I was there to meet them on the 18th of June.
Yep.
With Tamara, with my partner as well, and with Tamara from Australian Refugee Association, and a woman from an organisation called AIMS. AIMS is the Australian Migration Education Service. The AIMS people have been very good at it so far anyway. They've got them organised with Medicare, got them organised with a bank account, got them organised with Centrelink, got them organised with English. Because they're likely to be tortured and executed, because they're single women, which is one of the target groups of the Taliban. It's listed on the Department of Home Affairs as a priority because they're not married or in a relationship. Because they're Hazara, there's a whole set of criteria that the Department of Home Affairs, as I understand it, use to work out the classification of where they should fit.
But I do want to ask you, John, what it was like for you, given all the work you've done for these women, and also the Constantina time span that you wound up with, to meet them at the airport.
Oh, look, it was, I suppose you could say, a very happy occasion. I was very reserved because I have no idea about Afghan culture, Zara culture, Muslim religion, stuff like that, to be honest. So I didn't know whether it's the sort of thing where you could hug somebody,
Oh, yes. So how do I greet them when they first walk?
I have no idea. And I deliberately brought my partner with me because I got conflicting information. One lot saying you can't be a man and meet them on your own. You've got to have a female with you. And I wasn't sure whether Tamara from AA was coming or the AIMS woman. They said they'd try and get there. But I thought, what happens if I'm just there on my own meeting them? I'm not sure that's appropriate.
So what did you do?
Well, I brought Sally, my partner, with me, and when we were there, they were basically smiled, and we just tried. And the AIMS person was really good because she was from Afghanistan.
All right.
So she did the interpretation and translating for us.
But did you want to hug?
Oh, yeah. Look, I wanted to, but I didn't. But I got to say, Sally did, and the other women did.
Did they?
Yeah, the women.
All right. Okay. So they made them feel welcome.
Yeah, and we took a number of photos, and the women were very smiling. Oh, look, and I brought with me a. This is pretty funny. I brought a little toy koala and a little toy kangaroo that I'd bought in
All right, yeah.
Adelaide Arcade, because and it said "Welcome to Adelaide." I've been in touch with them a number of times, and look, one of the things that I got invited to as a result of that meeting at the airport was an Eid celebration. I didn't even know what Eid was, but it's EID, and apparently it's a celebration that they have after they've had Ramadan.
So one of their primary issues, I guess, would be overcoming the language barrier.
Yep. The language is the key.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had some people. I think some people are stupid. Sorry, I mean, on Facebook, etc., saying to me, when are they working?
Well,
I mean, they've been here 6 days at that time. They don't speak any English. They don't even know the country. It'd be like landing on another.
let them get some time to settle in and learn some of the language.
Like landing on another planet.
Absolutely,
between Australia and Afghanistan. And I thought to myself, you've got to be fucking kidding me. They've been here 6 days, and and you expect them to have a job.
Yeah.
I mean, man, that's just not reasonable. I've had a lot of stuff on Facebook. And look, the other thing that's been pretty hard is since then, I've had so many people ask me to help them. I've had probably 40 or 50 people from Afghanistan, men and women, contact me now via Facebook, telling me their stories and their plights that that they're suffering at the hands of the Taliban, and probably most of them are true. But I just can't help everybody.
So how different would all of this be for you if you were a wealthy individual with a heck of a lot of disposable income?
Well, I'd be helping a lot of people. I mean, I really have this view of money being like manure. You spread it around and help people. You don't keep it for yourself because you ain't going to take it with you. I mean, I wouldn't want to put myself into a pauper situation because then you can't do anything.
No,
but if I was really wealthy, if I won, $100 million or something, or across Lotto or some shit like that, which I've got to remember to go into.
Yes, you do. Have the same problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about keeping the money.
So we'll put it to those of you out there watching this video. If we did have another channel where John could talk about all of these experiences and lots of other stuff that this man has done, would you subscribe to that channel so that you don't have to give any money? Subscription would be enough, so we could get, I guess we'd need probably about 20,000 subscribers for it to work. So would you be prepared to get involved in that and subscribe to a channel where John was talking about this stuff more freely? Let us know in the comment section below about that. When I hear you talk of this stuff, it makes me realise that perhaps you haven't actually retired at all, just that you stopped earning money from your work. Which is kind of what a lot of us do when we retire.
I think you're right there, actually.
So thanks, John, for being here. It was good to see you again after all these years, and hopefully we can continue to have more conversations like this over time.
So I'll be able to give you an update.
And we could follow this story around these Afghan women and watch their progress and their integration into our community and their community and what that's like for them. That'd be good to catch up on that. So if you've got any comments about anything that we've talked about today, put a comment section below, and please remember to subscribe and ring the bell for further notifications. We'll be doing more conversations with John, so you'll be able to catch up with him and hear more about what's happening later on. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.